Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 26. We are just leaving behind double Game Week 25, which was a pretty massive letdown for those of us with double Game Week players from Liverpool and Man City in particular. Liverpool players got injured, Man City players blanked for the most part, and now we have to look ahead to the future and blank Game Week 26 and blank Game Week 29 in particular. Some of you guys are navigating that with a wildcard in Game Week 26, and for some of you guys, I don't really blame you because some of you guys need your teams to be completely different with a lot of players missing in Game Week 26 in particular. And this is basically the best video for you because I'm going to show you what I think is the best way to handle a wildcard draft in 26 and also navigate Game Week 29 and the future beyond that as well. But mostly for the next couple game weeks, I think still that the best solution is to free hit in Game Week 29. I think that is the best game week to free hit because I think there are a lot of players that I want for only that game week and not before and not after. So this weekly wildcard draft is going to mainly be with Game Week 29 free hit in mind. But at the end of the video, I'm also going to have an alternate version if you want to navigate Game Week 29 without using free hit as well. So yeah, you can fast forward to the end of the video to see that as well. But for most of the team is actually shared for both teams really, or both strategies. So I think 10 out of the 15 players will be the same on both teams, but towards the end of the video I'll have more of a different draft for those of you guys who want to navigate 29 without using the free hit chip. So with that in mind, let's go into the weekly wildcard draft where the number one player is the player that I think is the most important player to have in FPL currently, and the 15th player is the player that I'm the most unsure about having in my squad for the weekly wildcard drafts basically. But let's go on to the number one pick this week, and that is going to be Bukayo Saka for the first time this season, I think. I don't think he's been number one this season mostly, because mostly it's been Haaland, but he just had a pretty lackluster game week 2025 with a double game week, and now he has tougher fixtures. He blanks in 29 as well, and has a couple not as good fixtures after 29 either. So I think Saka is the most important player to have. And especially for this wildcard where I'm free hitting in 29 because I want triple Arsenal after 29 as well, leading into game week 34. But that's obviously going to change a little bit. If you're free hitting in 34, then maybe having triple Arsenal is not as important. But I think Saka in general is just a really important player to have because he's just been on fire lately. And Arsenal are just absolutely amazing, scoring a lot of goals, not conceding that many goals either. But Saka's just been getting double-digit hauls the last few game weeks. I think 3 game weeks in a row he's gotten 10 plus points. So yeah, he's just absolutely amazing lately. Arsenal have also really good fixtures, especially for in an attacking sense. Newcastle at home in the first game, Sheffield United away in the second game, and then Brentford at home in the third game before they blank in game week 29. But yeah, I think those 3 matches are just too important to have Saka in. So I think even if you're not wildcarding and you're still trying to figure out going through game week 29 without a free hit, I still think Saka is worth considering at least to bring in. So he's just that good currently, and Arsenal are looking so good. So Saka comes in at the number 1 pick. Number 2, we have another player who had a bit of a lull the last 10 game weeks ago. Between 10 and 5 game weeks ago, people were thinking about selling both Saka and Watkins potentially to afford double game week players. And thankfully, if you've kept both of them, you've made the right decision because the double game week players were not worth it at all in Game Week 25. And Saka and Watkins have just been absolutely amazing. I think Saka scored, 49 points or something in the last 4 or 5 game weeks, and Watkins has 40 points or something in around the last few game weeks at least. And still, they have really good matches. And Watkins even has the added benefit of having a match in Game Week 29 as well. So yeah, he's just an amazing pick whether you are free hitting in 29 or not. Watkins is someone that you want to have in your team basically. Nottingham Forest at home, Luton away, Tottenham at home, and West Ham away. All those fixtures seem really good on paper, and Aston Villa are looking really good currently as well, creating a lot of chances and playing some of their best football of the season so far. I think Yuri Tielemans as well, with his inclusion more and more in the team, I think that has really helped Watkins as well, as you saw in this past game week where he scored from a really nice Tielemans assist. And I think Watkins is just pretty important to have currently, especially if you're trying to navigate Game Week 29 without a hit, or without a free hit at least. He is pretty much essential in your team. So yeah, Watkins comes in as well. Saka and Watkins, 2 guys who I personally as well was looking to sell potentially just a couple game weeks back, and now they look absolutely essential. So that tells you something about how quickly things change in FPL. So always be on the lookout for things to all of a sudden turn on their heads in the future in FPL. And that's why safe players like Saka and Watkins, who we know are going to play 90 minutes every week and mostly not get injured, and mostly play for good teams as well, they're just really good picks in FPL in general. Third pick is Haaland. Obviously, he has to be in the squad still. I think he's just too important, but maybe he's not that essential of a captain pick still, as we still assume that he is. Because after last season, most people were just thinking Haaland is a must-buy, must-get player to have. And in some ways, I agree. He's just really dependable. Like, he's really easy to just choose and captain because we know he's going to be performing pretty well at least. But I think you can also go without him, especially after game week 30, where it's going to be a bit tight when it comes to money, and you need Salah, potentially need Son as well. Maybe you get to sell him at that point. But either way, I think Haaland is still a really good pick, even with fixtures not being too good. Bournemouth away, Man United at home, Liverpool away, not the best fixtures. I still think the Man United at home game is actually pretty good for Man City because they tend to just keep on chugging and keep on scoring goals in those types of games. But lately they've been struggling a bit with scoring goals, but I think that's going to turn around pretty quickly because it is Man City after all. We're expecting them to be a really, really good team. So yeah, I think especially for the next 2 game weeks, Haaland is pretty good, but I don't really blame most people if they're looking to sell him in the Liverpool fixture. Tough fixture against Liverpool, then blank in 29, and then after that they have decent fixtures, but not like crazily good fixtures either. But for now, I think still Haaland is really important. I think he's going to be my captain in game week 27 against Man United at home as well. So for that reason, he comes in at number 3, but it's not like the surefire pick that I thought it was going to be just a couple game weeks back. So yeah, Haaland comes in at number 3, but yeah, you pretty much know that Haaland is pretty important to have in FPL, so I don't really need to talk much more about Haaland either. Let's move on to number 4, which is going to be Dominic Solanke, our third striker. I think Watkins, Haaland, Solanke is the best striking trio you can have in the game currently, and that's why they are all picked pretty high in this draft. Solanke, obviously, for game week 28, he's going to be the standout captaincy option or even triple captaincy option if you save your triple captaincy this game week and basically avoided that 10-pointer from Haaland as your triple captain, because I think Solanke could easily outdo that in game week 28 against Sheffield United and Luton at home. Even in game week 27 against Burnley away, that's a really good fixture for Solanke as well. And with this draft, we don't have to use him for the Man City at home fixture now in game week 26 either. So that's basically the best of both worlds when it comes to Solanke, who also has pretty good fixtures after game week 29 as well. Game week 30, 31, 33, I think. All those game weeks are really good for Bournemouth. So especially when we're free hitting in game week 29, Solanke just seems like an absolute must-buy at this point. So he's also someone you could potentially sell in game week 29 as well if you're not free hitting, which we'll get to when we go to the end of the video and look at the drafts where we have game week 29 players in mind as well. But yeah, Solanke, always captaincy choice in game week 28, and that's why we sort of need to have him in the team. You could go with someone like Haaland in the meantime and then sell him for Solanke in game week 28, but I think it's just save your transfers and have Solanke fit and ready to play for those fixtures, assuming he's going to be fit and ready to play, as we do expect, but you never know in FPL. Maybe someone gets injured, maybe that someone is Solanke, but I don't think so. He's been pretty reliable as a player who's going to start most games for Bournemouth, and he's just a talisman for Bournemouth and going to be an amazing player to have for the next 3 game weeks, I think, especially those game week 27 and 28 fixtures that he has. Number 5, we have Gabriel Magalhaes, who I have said is my favorite defender in FPL, basically this season, and he's just proving his worth all the time. Keeps getting clean sheets, keeps getting chances to score offensively as well. The same good fixtures as Saka has. Gabriel is also someone that I would like to keep beyond game week 30 as well, especially for the double game week in 34 for Arsenal. So, which we're most likely assuming is going to happen. This is still projected fixtures in game week 34, but for now it seems like Arsenal are like the main team to double in game week 34. The only other teams would be Crystal Palace, Everton, and Sheffield United from the looks of it currently. So yeah, Gabriel, before and after game week 29, he's absolutely perfect as an FPL option. Maybe not this week against Newcastle. We expect Arsenal to concede in that game, but I've seen stranger things happen than for Arsenal to not concede against Newcastle. They pretty much were close to not conceding against Liverpool, which is probably the toughest fixture to not concede in the whole league. So yeah, Gabriel is just a really important player to have. The best defender currently in the game. Even without a fixture in 29, he's still going to be in the game week 29 non-free hit team at the end of the video as well. So yeah, Gabriel, a no-brainer, good defensively, good attacking wise in terms of set pieces and corners and stuff, scoring from that. So yeah, easy pick for this team. Number 6, Phil Foden still keeps his place. I still think he has a couple more points to get for Man City and in FPL for our teams. He's a pretty tough player to gauge, obviously. He scored a hat-trick against Brentford away and then blanked against Brentford at home after blanking against Chelsea, which was not good. But he had that major chance against Brentford as well, and he's looking still really attacking and playing for the best team, presumably, in the league in Man City. So I still think Foden is pretty important to have. He's also someone you can sell when he plays against Liverpool, but I think for the next 2 game weeks, Bournemouth away and Man United at home, I think it's going to be a pretty important player to have. So for those 2 game weeks in particular, I want Foden, and beyond that as well, if you want to keep him long term, I still think he's a good pick because, yeah, he plays a lot of matches for Man City this season. Man City are obviously a really good team, and Foden has just been really good in FPL in general this season. So yeah, he comes in at number 6. Number 7, we have Hwang, who is a newcomer, but at the same time, I had him in the Game Week 24 weekly Wildcard draft, I think, before I dropped him for the double game week. But I just really like Hwang for the future, and especially the immediate future with the Sheffield United at home fixture in Game Week 26. He also has 3 fixtures against Newcastle away. In terms of attacking potential, that's a pretty good fixture. And Fulham at home in Game Week 28 as well, before he blanks as well in Game Week 29. But Game Week 29, like I said, it's not going to be an issue for this team because we're going to use the free hits. So yeah, we could just keep Hwang both before and after Game Week 29, which is why I like the free hits 29 strategy, because there are a lot of players like Hwang, Saka, Gabriel, Watkins, maybe not Watkins, but Solanke, I almost said, Haaland and Solanke. A couple of those players are nice to have post Game Week 30 as well, or post Game Week 29 as well. So Hwang is another one of those players. Wolves basically have really easy fixtures for the remainder of the season. They also potentially get a double game week in 37, which would be really nice as well. So he could be a really nice long-term pick, Hwang, who's been the top scorer for Wolves this season. The presumed penalty taker, there's like a discussion currently if it's Sarabia or Cunha or Hwang who's going to take a penalty if all 3 are on the pitch at the same time. But Hwang has been taking penalties for Wolves, and he's also been taking penalties for South Korea ahead of Heung-min Son. So I think he's pretty eager to take them, and that's mostly what you're looking for when it comes to penalty takers. Who is eager to take them? Because we've seen that with Salah. He's not a good penalty taker, but he's the one who's the most willing to just take the penalties regardless of what happens. So he's just a penalty taker by default for Liverpool, even though he keeps missing penalties and they have a lot of good penalty takers in their squad. And I think for Hwang, he's a pretty good penalty taker in his own right, and I think he wants to take them. He's also the top scorer, so he has more incentives to keep taking penalties over someone like Sarabia, who doesn't really need penalties because, but yeah, either way, that's just a little bit of a tangent when it comes to penalty taking duties. But even without penalties, I think Hwang is an amazing player. I had him earlier in the season before the Asian Cup, and he had that beautiful game against Brentford where he scored 2 goals before the half. He actually had to be subbed off at the half because of an injury, a slight injury. But he still got 2 goals for me and 14 points, I think, in total. So yeah, I have some good memories from Hwang. He has been really good this season in general. Wolves have been really good this season in general. And they have those really nice fixtures both before and after Game Week 29. So Hwang is a pretty easy pick for me as well. And he's one of the most popular picks to have in FPL currently as well. Or at least to get in Game Week 26. A lot of people are looking to get Hwang, and I completely agree with them. I think he's a really good pick as a replacement for Jota, for example, who's going to be replaced in this weekly Wildcard draft as well. So yeah, Hwang comes in at number 7. Number 8, we have Cole Palmer still, and yes, he blanks in 26 and he blanks in 29, but Game Week 29 we're going to use the free hits, and Game Week 26 we don't need him. So yeah, that's basically why he is in there. He's really good, especially from Game Week 30 onwards. I think Chelsea have really good fixtures. They also have the double game week in potentially both Game Week 36 and 37. They might have a double game week. And on top of that, they have pretty good fixtures in Game Week 30, 31, and 33, I think, or something around that as well. So Palmer has just been amazing this season, one of the best valued players in the league. So usually he'd be much higher on the list, but seeing as he has a couple blank game weeks, and you might want to go without him just to field an 11 for these 2 game weeks, then I see sort of the appeal to selling him at some point. I sold him myself in my own team for this past game week in 25, and I'm already kind of regretting it and looking how I can get him back into my team, because I think he's just going to be amazing. The 2 fixtures that he is going to play in the next 4 game weeks, Brentford away and Newcastle at home, I think he has really good chances to score a lot of goals. So yeah, I really like Palmer as a pick, even though he has a lot of blanks. He's just an amazing player, really, really good, really impressed me in the whole season. He's on penalties, obviously, which Chelsea get a lot of. And he's just a really good player, especially, after Game Week 26, he's pretty much a no-brainer if you're free hitting in Game Week 29, because he's going to have a lot of good fixtures and a lot of doubles eventually as well. So he's just a nice player to stash on your bench for those game weeks he blanks and has tougher fixtures. And then you can start him in all the other fixtures where he's going to be really, really good and provide a lot of value. So yeah, Palmer still stays in despite having 2 blanks in the next 4 game weeks, which is not looking good on the graphic, but Palmer is just someone that is better than what the available fixtures really tell the story of. So yeah, that was a convoluted sentence, but you get the idea. Palmer is just too good to not have in your squad, in my opinion. Number 9, we have Marcos Senesi, or Senesi. I don't know how you pronounce it correctly, but either way, he's going to be a pretty important player to have for Game Week 27 and Game Week 28. Burnley away in Game Week 27, Sheffield United at home and Luton at home in Game Week 28. And again, the Man City fixture, we don't have to use him because we have, maybe we have to use him actually. I think we actually have to use Solanke for that fixture, but Senesi, we can bench for that game week. We bench Senesi, Palmer, and then another player who has a double in 28. That we'll get to pretty soon. But yeah, 27-28 is basically the selling point for Senesi. And also, like I mentioned with Solanke, has pretty good fixtures after Game Week 29 as well. So it makes sense for a team where we are going to free hit in 29 and have players that are really good both before and after Game Week 29. And Senesi, he ticks all those boxes for Bournemouth and your FPL team. So he gets into the team as the number 9 pick in this weekly Wildcard draft as well. Number 10, we have his teammate Neto in goal. This is not Pedro Neto, who's also a pretty nice player to have currently in FPL. It is Neto in former goalkeeper from Barcelona, who's currently the goalkeeper for Bournemouth. Just makes a lot of sense to have a player that has the double game week in 28 and has also a double game week potentially later on in the season, or maybe I'm mixing that up. But either way, he has pretty good fixtures, like I mentioned with both Senesi and Solanke as well. Double game week makes a lot of sense for him, and he rotates pretty nicely with the other goalkeeper that I'm going to have in this squad as well. So yeah, Neto is a pretty easy pick to have, just to have that double game week goalkeeper. It's much easier to hide a goalkeeper on your bench than an outfield player, I think. So Neto's really good for those game weeks where he has really easy fixtures, and then obviously you can bench him against Man City and in the blank in 29 potentially if you need to do that. If you're not using free hit in 29, you need to have a second goalkeeper that starts in 29. But we'll get to that in the draft towards the end of the video. But Neto seems like a pretty safe pick. Bournemouth have been pretty good defensively this season, which is also a nice point for Senesi in defense. So yeah, Neto comes in at number 10. Number 11, we have Doughty, who doesn't play in Game Week 26 either. So that leaves us with Palmer not playing in 26 and Doughty not playing in 26 and Senesi having a poor fixture in 26. And those three players will be on the bench for Game 26, but they are pretty important to have later on in the season. Doughty also has the double game week in 28. It's not as good as the Bournemouth double. He has Crystal Palace away and Bournemouth away. But we've seen Doughty with a lot of attacking stats, especially. That's what we can say about him the last 2 game weeks, where he's had a lot of attacking contributions without getting any points in FPL. But that's probably coming potentially even in the game tonight, which is before I'm recording or after I'm recording. Liverpool are playing Luton, and that might be where Doughty gets his huge haul, maybe, potentially, hopefully. But yeah, he has pretty good fixtures in game 28, obviously, with the double. And he also has the game week 29 fixture if you need to navigate that game week without using a free hit as well. But he's mostly in there for the double game week and also for the attacking potential that he's shown. Been pretty good and pretty vital to Luton offensively. And he's pretty vital for their chances of staying up as well. So he gets in at number 11. Number 12, we have Martin Ødegaard, my compatriot from Norway, who is also looking really fantastic lately, along with the whole Arsenal team. He completes the triple up for Arsenal, who I want to have for both before Game Week 29 and after Game Week 29 using the free hit. So Ødegaard obviously would be a candidate to drop if you want a full team for Game Week 29 without using a free hit. But when you're using a free hit in Game Week 29, the fixtures before Game Week 29 and also the double game week in 34 are really appealing with someone like Ødegaard, who's been amazing lately, especially as a non-FPL player. FPL has been really good the last 2 game weeks, but in general, as a player, a football player, he's been really, really good lately, and it's getting a bit underrated, I think, in general. He's one of the best players in his position in the entire world, in my opinion. But then again, I'm Norwegian, so I might be a bit biased there. But yeah, I think he's just been amazing lately. And also, when it comes to FPL, getting 2 double-digit hauls in a row now, I think. And that might continue to happen as well with Newcastle at home, Sheffield United away, and Brentford at home in the next 3 fixtures as well. So Ødegaard comes in at number 12. Number 13, we have basically the eternal end of the weekly Wildcard draft player, which is Branthwaite. He just keeps stacking up along those 10 to 15 spots in the draft, because I just can't really see going without him in the future, especially with this team where we are free hitting in 29. He's going to be important for game week 34, where we're not going to have a free hit, obviously. That's going to be a game week where we expect Everton to have a double game week. But regardless of that, Branthwaite has just been someone that can fill in really nicely in game weeks where you need him to. And that's going to be the case again for these few game weeks that are coming up now as well. Away to Brighton in the Game Week 26 fixture. He's going to be a nice player to have there. Potentially Everton get a clean sheet there. We've seen Everton do a pretty good result against Brighton in the past at least. And Branthwaite is just, he's just Mr. Reliable basically in FPL this season, getting clean sheet points here and there. Even got a goal against Spurs a couple game weeks back as well. He has a decent goal threat. We know Everton are pretty good at set pieces. So Branthwaite is just, as always, really cheap, really nice option to have at the end of your bench who can step in and fill in whenever you need a player to fill in into your team. So yeah, Branthwaite comes in at number 13. Number 14, we have Ait-Nouri, who's kind of like a risky pick, I guess. I did think about potentially going with a Crystal Palace defender because of double game week 34 potentially, and not having the free hit for that game week. Crystal Palace are getting a new manager playing a 3-4-3 system as well, with pretty attacking fullbacks. So I think someone like Munoz or potentially even Tyrick Mitchell from Crystal Palace would be a pretty good pick here as well. They also have a really good fixture in game week 26. As we'll get to see pretty soon, because I do have a Crystal Palace player coming as the final pick in this draft. But Ait-Nouri, for what it's worth, really good fixtures both before and after the blank game week 29. Like I mentioned with Hwang. Ait-Nouri has also been playing super attackingly for Wolverhampton. If you look at Crystal Palace, they have sort of two kind of attacking fullbacks, but for Wolverhampton, it's actually more that Ait-Nouri is super attacking and Semedo is the more defensively minded fullback or wing back for Wolves. So Ait-Nouri has been in really good positions lately, has looked really threatening, and now that he has really good fixtures, especially Sheffield United at home and Fulham at home in game week 26 and game week 28, I think it's just a really good player to have for now and also for the future. Like I mentioned with Hwang, Wolves just have a lot of good fixtures left in the schedule. I think apart from game week 36 and 38, I think those two are pretty tough for them. But apart from that, they have just really, really easy fixtures in general. So yeah, he works out beautifully for a team that is free hitting in game week 29. And I think he has a lot of huge potential for a defender because he can score goals, he can get assists, and he can potentially get some clean sheets here and there as well. Potentially get those 15, 18, potentially 20 pointers from a defender, which are really rare but are really nice to have when you get them. So Ait-Nouri is the number 14th pick. Number 15, and finally in goal, we have Johnstone for Crystal Palace. I did mention Crystal Palace have some pretty good games. Burnley at home in game week 26, Luton at home in game week 28. The blank doesn't really matter. Like I mentioned, we have the free hit in 29, so both Neto and Johnstone blanking in 29 is not that big of an issue. Obviously, it's going to be a different thing with the team that we are going to present you next. I say we, it's only me, but the team that I'm going to present to you next is going to be with a goalkeeper playing in game week 29. But for this team with a free hit in game week 29, Johnstone seems like the perfect guy to have next to Neto. You can rotate them pretty well. As you can see for the next 3 game weeks, Johnstone would actually be pretty nice to have in game 28 as a player. You could potentially bench boost in game 28 as well with Johnstone on your bench, but I think there are personally better game weeks than 28 to double or to use your bench boost in. But either way, he has a really good fixture in game 36, which is important, and he also has a double game week in 34, which is something that Neto doesn't have. And they also rotate pretty well in general in those game weeks. Johnstone is a slight risk though, because he's been benched for like 8 game weeks in a row now. But then now that they made a change from Hodgson to Glasner, the first game after that happened, Johnstone was back in goal rather than Henderson. And personally, I think Johnstone has just had a better season than Henderson. Palace have had better times with Johnstone in goal, and I think he's going to keep the place for the foreseeable future. So hopefully we don't need to rely on Neto only for the future with this draft. But I think if Johnstone plays, especially if Crystal Palace get things sorted now with a new manager, he could be a really good option to have for the future as well, especially with double game week 34 in mind as well. So Johnstone comes in at number 15, and that concludes the weekly wildcard draft for this week. When it comes to free hitting in game week 29, there's also a couple more things, or one more thing that I have to mention with this team, and that's the players that have dropped out since last week. Let's talk about that first before we go into the plan for wildcarding in game week 26 and not using a free hit in game week 29, which I'm going to get to at the final stage of this video, as I told you at the start of the video. So finally, the players that have dropped out since last time, again, not really surprising, a lot of the double game week players. Diogo Jota, number 4, he's injured for a long while now, so obviously he's a really easy player to sell. So yeah, he drops out of the team naturally. De Bruyne didn't play in the second game in the double game week. He blanked in the first game as well, so 2 points from De Bruyne throughout the double game week, really disappointing. He's still a player that came back from injury not too long ago, and yes, he scored and had an assist in the Champions League, which is something that we wished would have happened, especially those of us with them in our FPL team. We wished would have happened in the actual Premier League games, but yeah, he had a sore something with his hamstring for this past game, and he is potentially even a doubt for Game Week 26. So he's just an easy sell at this point, even though I think he could do really good damage against Man United in Game Week 27 as well. But yeah, he's someone we have to sell. He's just too expensive for someone who is rotation risk when it comes to injuries and stuff. Also not the best fixtures both before and after Game Week 29 as well, so he drops out. Darwin as well, the same as Jota. He's injured, probably not as severe as Jota, but he's still injured. And yeah, the double game week is basically the main selling point for Darwin, and our 3 strikers now, Watkins, Haaland, and Solanke, are just so clear of Darwin that I don't really have any issues getting rid of him either. Van Dijk also drops out. Brighton still have some good fixtures before Game Week 29, but I think I just want to go with someone like Ait-Nouri for the foreseeable future. Post Game Week 29 as well, I think Ait-Nouri is going to be a better pick than Van Dijk. Both in terms of attacking potential and potentially defensive potential as well, with Wolves having better fixtures than Brighton after Game Week 29. So he drops out. Dubravka also drops out to make way for Johnstone in goal, and I think Johnstone just rotates better with Neto and also has that double Game Week 34 fixture, which Dubravka is not going to have. And Newcastle have just been conceding left and right lately, so I don't really feel that good about Dubravka as a goalkeeper anymore either. So that basically concludes the weekly wildcard draft if you're free hitting in Game Week 29. But like I mentioned at the start of the video and throughout the video, I'm going to present to you an alternative if you don't want to use your free hit chip in 29 and save it for Game Week 34 instead. So let's get into that team using FPL.team, the really nice website to project your future game weeks in FPL. And this team is actually only 5 players different than the wildcard team that I just presented to you. And they are Martinez in goal rather than Johnstone, because he plays in Game Week 29, obviously, which is going to be the theme for all these 5 players that are different from the wildcard draft that I just presented to you. In defense, Taylor and Udogi comes in for Branthwaite and Ait-Nouri. And then in midfield, we have Bowen and Bailey rather than Palmer and Ødegaard for Game Week 29 purposes, mostly. But for what it's worth, I think Bowen is actually a pretty good player to have currently, because I think Paqueta coming back is going to help West Ham a lot when it comes to offensive tactics for West Ham. West Ham have had a pretty poor period lately, but I think Bowen has the proven track record, and Paqueta is going to be a big help for him. So I think he's actually a pretty underrated asset going forward in FPL. So I don't really mind this draft either that much, but I just prefer using free hit in 29 because I think it sets you better up post Game Week 30 or post Game Week 29 as well as having a better team before Game Week 29 as well. So yeah, I just think this is better. Maybe you will gain a lot of points in Game Week 34, or it will be easier to navigate Game Week 37. But yeah, either way, let me present to you the draft for Game Week 26, the wildcard draft for Game Week 26 if you're not free hitting in Game Week 29. So yeah, I just mentioned the team. It's not ideal, obviously, because you can see Senesi and Taylor starting in defense. Not the best. Senesi against Man City. Taylor against anyone is really bad, because Burnley are pretty bad defensively in general. But Taylor has had that quality this season that when people have needed him to step up in FPL, he stepped up with returns. So maybe that will happen again for those of you guys putting your faith in Taylor to be the main man for Game 26 and 29 in particular. Maybe that will happen again. We'll see about that. By the way, we still have a lot of the same players. We have Haaland, Watkins, and Solanke, of course. It's still the same forward trio that we had in the weekly wildcard draft that I just presented you. Saka stays, Foden stays, Hwang stays. Gabriel, Senesi, obviously Senesi with the double game week in 28. Same with Solanke, also stays, like I mentioned, Solanke there, and Doughty as well with the double game week in 28. Are just nice players to have on the wildcard, regardless if you're fading it or not in Game Week 29, in my opinion. Also, Neto is the same. He also has a double game week in 28, like I mentioned. So yeah, this is the Game Week 26 team. Like we just saw, decent fixtures for Bailey and Bowen. I think they're actually decent players to buy this game week if you are going to go through Game Week 29 without using your free hit. So yeah, those are my favorite midfielder picks over the likes of Kudus, Douglas Luiz, Elanga, all those types of guys. I think Bowen and Bailey are the 2 standout picks for players that play in both Game Week 26 and in Game Week 29. Then in Game Week 27, we get another player who's going to be really good for Game Week 29, but doesn't play in Game Week 26, and that is Heung-min Son. He comes in for Foden in Game Week 27. You could still keep Foden against Man United at home. He had a hat-trick against Man United at home last season, I think. So he might do really well in that game once again. Foden is really hard to judge or hard to gauge how well he's going to do. But I think he's a pretty good standout pick for Game 27 as well. So If you want to sell him to Son or not, that's kind of up to you. I think Son is just a slightly better pick, especially for the future. So you might as well get Son for this good fixture as well against Crystal Palace at home, on top of everything else. But you could save the transfer for a week later if you really like Foden this game week and you just want to be on the safe side when it comes to your picks, because you want to pick your Game Week 29 players as late as possible, because there might be injuries and stuff. Because if you bring in someone like Son and he gets injured before Game Week 29, you might as well have brought in a player that doesn't blank or does blank in 29, because Son will not be able to play in 29, and that's in that instance. But yeah, I think Son this game week is really nice. Crystal Palace at home. You could arguably captain him that game week as well. I think I'm still going to go with Hwang captain even if I had Son, but it is a nice option at least. So this team is actually looking pretty good. Senesi against Burnley away, pretty good. You also have a decision between either Bowen or Bailey as your midfielder. Luton away for Bailey, Everton away for Bowen. I think both fixtures are decent, but not the best. It depends how good Bowen looks against Brentford, I guess, because if Bailey looks good in the game prior against Nottingham Forest, playing against a weaker team in Luton compared to Bowen against Everton, then I would probably go with Bailey. But I think Bowen is going to bounce back, like I said, so I think I would start Bowen in this game week instead. But that's completely up to you, obviously, when you come to that point. Same with the goalkeepers, Neto or Martinez. Again, sort of 50-50. This is actually not the worst bench boosts either, I guess, but I think I would save the bench boost for later. Anyway, I think Game Week 37 bench boost is going to be pretty nice this year. So yeah, I would save it for that. But Son in for Foden, the only transfer this week. The next game week in Game Week 28, no transfers basically, just getting in all the double game week players in the starting lineup. Neto, the really nice double. Senesi, the really nice double. Solanke, the really nice double. Tripling up on Bournemouth in those two fixtures in Game Week 28. Just seems like a no-brainer, really. Doughty is the only player that I really like from Luton in this game week. You could, rather than going with Son in Game Week 27, you could just save your transfer and get in Barkley for Foden in Game Week 28 and have much more money in the bank. Maybe that will help you get Salah easier in Game Week 30 without sacrificing Haaland. So that is something that you could do potentially as well. But in Game Week 28, no transfers used, and you have a really strong team regardless, because you have all those double game week players, obviously. And yeah, you can bench Bailey and Spurs at home, but that's still a pretty good fixture, so you could play him that game week as well. And it is also nice if you have an injury, so you can just play him against Tottenham at home, or someone else on their bench if you really need to. But as a starting 11, I think this is really, really nice for Game Week 28. I think you'll get a lot of points, especially if you kept your triple captaincy chip to use on Solanke this game week as well. That would be really nice. But yeah, Game Week 28, you can navigate without any free transfers, and that means you have 2 free transfers for Game Week 29. And I'm actually going to take a hit to have a full starting 11 in this game week. The one transfer in, which is the obvious one, is getting Tony in, because he would probably be the best captaincy option next to Son. One of those guys would be my captain this game week in Game Week 29. But the question is if you want to sell Solanke or if you want to sell Haaland, because selling Haaland would make it easier to get Salah again. If you sold, or if you bought Barkley rather than Son, obviously you wouldn't have to sell Haaland to get Salah into your team. But if you kept Son and you want to keep Son for a couple game weeks as well, because he has pretty good fixtures in Game Week 30 and 31 and stuff, then you might want to sell Haaland if you want to get Salah. So you have to choose 2 out of Son, Haaland, and Salah basically from Game Week 30 onwards. Otherwise, you'd have... I don't think anyone would be able to afford all 3 of them while still having enough players to play in Game Week 29. By the way, Tony comes in for either Solanke or Haaland. In this instance, it would be Solanke. And then we get Richarlison in for a midfielder, which would be... I should have that. Hwang and Chan, obviously. You swap Hwang for Richarlison. And then Reguilon comes into defense rather than Senesi. So that gives you enough players for Game 29. You could also potentially just keep Senesi and have 1 game week player less, or 1 player less this game week. You also don't really know yet, because obviously we're doing this wildcard draft in Game Week 26 before the FA Cup matches between Game Week 26 and Game Week 27. So maybe we'll get Bournemouth and Bournemouth and Wolves playing in that game week regardless. That would be really nice to have those players for Game Week 29. But even if we still get the same projected teams now, with Luton joining the 3 confirmed fixtures, Luton against Nottingham Forest joining the 3 confirmed fixtures, we'd still be able to field a team of 11 players pretty nicely for this game week without sacrificing too much, at least before Game Week 29. I think the issues start more in Game Week 30, to be honest. Obviously, you've used your wildcard at this point, because this is the weekly wildcard draft. Unless your team is looking like the weekly wildcard draft for Game 26 already, then you're in a pretty good position to get through with this tactic and then wildcarding Game Week 30 potentially. But yeah, not ideal here to have the City players playing against the Arsenal players, Gabriel and Saka against City, Haaland against Arsenal. You have also like a lot of the extra baggage that we have from game 29. Defensively wise, regular against Man United, not the best. I don't know. The team could be better, but at the same time, it's not the worst team in the world either. It's an okay team. It's also really nice with Son captaincy shout potentially. You could also have Salah if you sold Haaland, for example, in game week 29, you could easily get Salah back for example, Bowen in this game week, or potentially for someone even cheaper like Bailey. I don't know. I haven't completely worked out the money there. But yeah, either way, I think game week 30 and beyond is probably not ideal with this tactic, but I think it's still a pretty good tactic for getting through game week 39 without using your free hits. Because that means you can use your free hit in game week 34, where you have a lot of teams doubling and some teams blanking potentially. Maybe Spurs are blanking in this game week and you really need your free hits, especially when you're bringing in the game week 29 players from Spurs, for example, who are not playing in game week 34 potentially. It would be really nice, especially to have the free hits. But for those of you guys navigating game 29 with a free hit in game 29, you wouldn't have that many Spurs players to get rid of in this time either, because they have some pretty tough fixtures leading up to this. Newcastle away is not the worst for offensive players, I guess. They do have some pretty nice fixtures, Spurs. So that's the upside, I guess, with this tactic, is having the Spurs players in game week 30, because yeah, they do have some nice fixtures before they blank in 34, where you could just use your free hits. So yeah, this tactic is pretty good as well. Honestly, I quite like both tactics. But yeah, you can mix and match, choose whatever suits you, whatever suits the way you play FPL. Personally, I don't really like the thought of getting rid of players with a good fixture, like Watkins, for example, against Bournemouth at home. That could be a really nice fixture, but obviously you would switch him out for a double game week player probably in this draft. So yeah, I don't think there's that much upside to using your free hit in a double game week as most other people make it out to be, but maybe I'm wrong on that in that instance, so maybe that's not the case, but who knows really. But yeah, that's really far into the future anyway, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. You have to worry more about what's going to happen immediately, and with this you have either free hit in 29 tactic or no free hit in 29 tactic, and I think you're pretty well suited for the future game weeks in game week 30 and beyond, regardless of what you do basically, if you're wildcarding this week. So yeah, I think you have some pretty good options in general if you're wildcarding this week. So good luck to you if you're doing that. Hopefully you also stick around for the next few videos on my YouTube channel for this week and beyond that as well. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed already, please do that. Like the video if you found it informative, or leave a comment. I have had a lot of nice comments lately on the YouTube channel, and it's always nice to see those of you guys who really appreciate the content and stuff. It's really nice to see you guys returning and watching these videos and leaving nice comments all the time. So yeah, with that in mind, just gonna end the video. It's been a pretty long one, so yeah, I'm just gonna leave you at that. See you next time. Bye bye.